Thank you, Carl, for having me on this meeting, a weird format. I'm like still not used to it, but it is what it is. But anyway, thank you for having me. And I hope you guys have, staying healthy and safe and all that. And I don't know why I'm nervous. I'm not with anybody, but anyway, so I'll just tell my story. So by God's grace and program Alcoholics Anonymous and sponsorship, I've been sober since January 27th, 1995. And for that, I am grateful. And I have a sponsor. Polly's my sponsor. And she has a sponsor, Rena, and she lives very close to me, actually. She came to my home group and spoke. My home group is the Saturday Night Speaker Group in Sarasota, Florida. It starts at 7:30, and we have 2 speakers in 1 hour, unless I'm chairing, and that person's going to get a whole hour. That was bad. Anyway, I have, I'm one of the greeters at the greeting line, which we can't really do right now. I'm okay with that. I have this thing with people. I don't like people. I always been, I don't like people. And my sponsor told me that's because you're afraid of them. And I said, I'm not afraid of them. I just don't like them. Come to find out it's the same thing. But I didn't realize that when I was, new. And I still have a thing with the people. So hopefully that'll go away. But that was a very hopeful message for new people. So I grew up in South Korea, and my parents were, I wish they had drank, but they never did. I never saw them drink, not even a drop. And I had a lot of, I had a learning disability, and my parents hated that, so they did a lot of physical and verbal abuse. I don't know if they were trying to beat the smart into me, but obviously it didn't work. But that's how I grew up. And when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had this huge resentment against my parents because, they abused me and blah, blah, blah. And, people like Polly would say to me, I am your mom. And I'm like, no, they never drank. I mean, they were not even alcoholics. And I just couldn't get that through my head. And that resentment would kill me almost with when I was 7 years sober. But, I'll get into that later. But anyway, so that's how I grew up. And I was always afraid. And I was always, I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be heard. I got beat up all the time. My sisters and my brother made fun of me, and I just was never part of anything. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I was all that crap that people talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I was 15, my parents decided to ship me off to boarding school in North Carolina. And I don't know if it was worse or better, but I didn't want to be in either places. And one of the problems was that I couldn't speak English when I got to this school. So I didn't understand what was going on in the classroom. I didn't understand the assignment. I didn't understand what teachers were saying. I couldn't make any friends. They knew that I was from foreign country and couldn't speak the language. So, we had high school kids were in one area, and across the quad and across the other side was college dorm, and it was the art school, and we all ate at the same place, same cafeteria. So it was college students and high school kids. And I started to notice that, people pick up their tray and leave if they saw me walk by or trying to sit down. And so it was very lonely time, and I was depressed. And during breaks, people, the parents will come and then pick up their kids, and everybody will be gone, and I'll be all by myself in this whole school. And I didn't, it was just very difficult time. But there were kids, I don't know. I know Carl had these kids when he was going to school. He calls it losers corner. Well, in my school, they call them freaks. They sat in the way back in the school cafeteria, the round table, the way back table. And one of them was like, had a pink mohawk, another one dressed all in black, and another guy dressed like Judd Nelson in Breakfast Club. And they would listen to things like The Clash, Sex Pistols, and they smoked cigarettes. They were high school kids, they smoked cigarettes. And those kids would let me hang with them. They didn't pick up their tray and move. They let me sit there with them and ate that lunch. I remember it like it was yesterday. And so they became my people. I don't know if they were too stoned to notice me, but it didn't matter to me. They were like my people. So I started to do what they did, and they taught me how to smoke cigarettes. They smoked Lucky Strikes unfiltered, by the way. And, you know, they were listening to those music, and I didn't know what they were saying. I just remember it was loud. And I was wishing that I could sing along, but I didn't know. I couldn't speak the language. Anyway, one Friday, they were super excited about something. I don't know what, but what happened was that they snuck into the college dorm and scored some alcohol and funny cigarettes from college kids. And they were going off to this park. And so I followed them. They're like, don't eat lunch, don't eat dinner. And so I followed these kids to the park. And what happened is that'll be the first time I ever took a drink. And I don't know what I did yesterday, but I remember it like it was yesterday. That first drink, they handed me this thing, and I know it was cold to the touch, and I know it was beer. I don't know what kind it was. But as soon as it got to my hand, I had this instinct that I'm supposed to chug it. I'm not supposed to sip it. And I don't know where that came from, but because I never saw anybody drink, I didn't know that there was such a thing as an alcoholic. I mean, you hear about it, but I had a certain image or a certain idea of what alcoholic was. But I remember just chugging the whole thing, and I maybe had a second one, and I had this sensation, like tingly feeling all the way down to my fingertips. And a miracle happened. Apparently, when I was drunk, I spoke English. So I start talking with these guys. I start joking with these guys. I'm cracking jokes. I'm like the funniest person. And I start singing along to Sex Pistol songs. Apparently, I knew every word. I mean, who knew? And from that day on, I knew this was something I had to do. And I don't know, like, how often you drank, how you drank, or what you drank, or what made you drink. But my thought back then was, okay, I live in America now, and I have to speak English every day, so I have to drink every day. And that's where I went. So I would sneak into college dorm and get alcohol any way I could. And I got in trouble, like I got caught a couple of times. I got suspended. One time I twisted my ankle, fell into poison ivy ditch, and all that stuff. But this is what alcohol does to me. But what alcohol does for me is far greater than what it does to me. And it doesn't matter the consequences. I will drink no matter what. And now, I didn't know when I was drinking, but apparently alcoholics have a special effect when they drink. And I didn't know that. It talks about it in doctor's opinion. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Well, I love the effect. I don't even remember taste of the alcohol. Some people say it was nasty, but I drank anyway. I don't even remember that. All I remember is the effect that had for me. And that the effect happened to be so special, I would eventually sell my soul little by little for those drinks. And that's what I did. I think it was Polly who said it, that when man walks through doors of AA, they hated what they have done. And when women walk through doors of AA, they hated who they become. I don't know if that's true, but I could tell you that when I walked through doors of AA 25 years ago, I hated what I've done and I hated who I'd become. That pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization thing, nobody had to explain it to me. And so that's how I drank in high school. And I went off to college in New York, and that's when the party started. This is when other substances, like, get involved. And not that I like went out and looked for it, but it was just there. I became a club kid. And that's when back in the 80s, when the clubs were like so big in New York City. I mean, if you name it, I was there. I mean, I was everywhere. Limelight, Tunnel, you name it. And I will go to after our club. I will go to after our club. I knew all the bouncers, and I just, I was having super fun. And this is a time when I started to black out. I didn't know what that was. I found out what that was when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. They asked me when I was new, said, "Did you ever have blackout?" Because I would say that I'm not an alcoholic. And they'll say, "Did you ever drink?" And I said, "Oh, yeah." And they say, "Did you ever have blackouts?" I said, "I don't know what that is." And they said, "Well, yeah, okay, you had them." So I would like start at one club, and then like, I don't remember, but I came to in another club, bathroom with no shoes, and and things like this. And I wake up in the cab. I wake up, to place that I don't recognize, and but those are things that I just didn't care. I was having so much fun, and people starting to recognize my drinking. They were telling me that you drink too much, you're ending up in weird places. We always have to come rescue you, and blah blah blah. And it just kind of gotten annoying. So I got rid of those people. I just hang out with the drinkers, and I would after college, I got a job in art world where I got to travel all over the United States and all over Europe, installing artwork and working with the galleries and working with the curators and museum directors. And it was such a challenging but great job. And I got to do that. I travel all over Europe, and they would, they'll fly me out there for 2-3 weeks, and they put me up in a hotel, and then they'll just, make sure that I did all this stuff. And what happened was that my alcoholism is progressing, and I'm not really noticing it, but other people are. And they starting to say things like, "You're always drunk, you drink too much, you got to do something about this. If you can't make this to this opening, and you can't make the deadline, and you're always late, and you do this, you hit it." So people starting to really nag me over my drinking, because I will just disappear, and they don't know where I am. They're looking for me, and they can't have the openings. And, it started becoming a problem. So they start to get on my case about my job and my responsibility. So I quit my job, so I could drink and party all day and every day, and nobody could nag me. And the one thing I didn't count on, though, when you don't work, you don't get paycheck. I hate that. I always needed money. And so I got a part-time job, but it wasn't footing the bill. It's just my alcoholism is getting worse. And I don't even really, I think I might have a problem, but I don't really know. And what happened is I just had to do what I had to do, get drunk. And this is when I was starting to lie and cheat and steal from friends and employers, and trying to get that alcohol, and trying to just drink one more drink. I need that one more thing. And that's what happened. And so I ended up in this apartment by myself in New York. And by this time, I sold everything I could. I had like nothing in the apartment. The furnitures that weren't even mine, that I sold. I guess the same thing as stealing. But anyway, so it was just like any other day, any other night. By this time, people were bugging the heck out of me over my drinking. And my drug use, and they would just, you know, they didn't want to have anything to do with me. And the few people that left that cared, I would just tell them, I pushed them away, and I said, you don't understand, leave me alone. And they all eventually did. If I had the language I had today, if I was able to tell them, you don't understand what alcohol does for me, all you see is what alcohol does to me. And if I could have said that, you know, maybe there was something that could have happened, but I didn't know that. I didn't have the language. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't know anything about anything. And I said, leave me alone. And they eventually all did, left me all alone. And so I'm drinking alone in this apartment, and I had nothing. And it was just like any other day. I didn't mean to stop drinking that day or nothing. It's just was another day. And I was sitting in my apartment. Over in this side, I see 3 garbage cans full of my own vomit. And there was a lamp over here. And I don't know why, but this thought came across, and it said, I don't want to be drunk. I don't want to be sober. I just want to check out. And I thought maybe I'll go get a gun, but I didn't know where to get a gun in New York. And then I thought maybe I'll jump off the bridge. But it's kind of cold in New York in January, so I decided, no, I'm not going outside. It's too cold. And then I thought a couple of my friends who died a few months back, overdose. I thought maybe I could do that because I have some stuff. Our friend Peter calls it non-conference approved dry goods. I don't know why he has to say such a long thing for drugs, but anyway, so I had some stuff, and I had like vodka that I had. So I drank the vodka I had, and I took everything I had. And when I came to, there was a knock on the door, and I opened. My sister standing there. She lived in Jacksonville back then, Jacksonville, Florida, and she flew from Jacksonville, Florida to New York City. Was standing in front of my face, and if I closed my eyes, I could still see her face. Has so much fear and so much anger and so much disgust. And she said, "What were you doing last night?" And I told her that I was trying to kill myself, and she said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" So I told her that, well, you know, I drank the vodka I had and took everything I had. And she looked at me and she said, "I wish you'd have taken more," because she'd rather see me dead than the way I looked that day. And she put stuff in my duffel bag. Everything I owned fit in this little gym bag, basically. And we flew down to Jacksonville, Florida. She put me straight to detox in Jacksonville. And that's where my recovery began. And I don't usually talk about this, that I have one white chip since I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. There are a lot of people don't, and there are a lot of people who do. But relapse is part of your journey, but it isn't really part of your recovery. It is part of illness. And I have done it before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, but I haven't. And I'm only saying that to say that to the newcomer, you don't have to relapse. You could have one white chip and continue to stay sober. Anyway, so I ended up in detox. They came in there for 10 days, and they keep telling me that I have to go to this AA meetings, that this outside AA people come and bring it in. And I said, no, I guess that's like what we're doing right now, Carl. I don't know. I said, no, I'm not going to these meetings. And they were like, why? And I said, well, I'm not an alcoholic. And they said, well, if you don't come to these meetings, we're not going to let you out. And I was like, oh no, that's not good. So I attended one of these meetings, and I remember it was Friday night, 8:00, just like now. Well, it's not there, but it's 8:00 here. And there's 2 happy AA people came, and one guy's name, the 2 of them, the guy name was Jerry, and the girl name was Deb. By the way, they still sober today, 25 years later. And they told their stories like I'm doing now, but I didn't hear a word they said. I didn't know what they said. I couldn't care less what they said because I wasn't an alcoholic and I wasn't going to listen to any. I just wanted them to know that I was in there so they could let me out. I don't know what I was going to do when they let me out, but I wanted to be out of there. But after the meeting, the woman who came, she decided to come and speak to me. And she was very animated and very excited about talking to me. I don't know why. I'm like detoxing in detox. I look like hell, but she was just all over the place. She was just going, ah! And I have no idea what she said, but I still remember two things she said to me. And when she handed me her phone number, and she said, God loves you and AA works. And at the time, I wanted to hit her because she was just obnoxious. And, but today I know why I remember that. And God is doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous as an atheist. I grew up in a household where there's no God. My parents told me and again and again and again, there's no such a thing as God. God is for stupid people who don't know any better and blah, blah, blah. And when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I remember telling that to my sponsor, because every time you go to a meeting, people talk about, may you find him now. And I'll say, I can't do this. And she would say, why not? And I said, I can't do the God thing. There's no such a thing. And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, there's no such a thing as God. God is for stupid people who don't know any better. And my sponsor said, well, then I guess you wouldn't have any problem. And I realized I really didn't have a problem. But at the time, it was just very hard. So I get out of detox, and she said, call me when you get out. So I called her, and she was super excited. She was like, oh my God, I can't believe you called. Nobody ever calls me from detox. We'll go to AA meeting. And I was like, wait, so she took me to my very first meeting at this club. And it was a speaker meeting. I don't remember what that person said. I do remember it was a woman, though. And that's how I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wasn't one of these people who came to Alcoholics Anonymous and fell in love with the fellowship. I hated people. I hated things on the wall. I didn't like the people. I was in so much anger and rage. And I don't know how they knew, but they knew I was new. They will say things like, you must be new. What is your name? And I'll say things like, hey, this is an anonymous program. You don't have to know my name. I don't have to know your name. Back off. And I know like social distance thing is like really in and trendy thing now, but I perfected it because like they wanted to give me a hug when I was new. They still do. But anyway, they were like, want to give me a hug, and I say, hey, I don't need a hug. Back off. And they'll say things like, what if I need one? And I'll say things like, don't be so needy and back off. And this is how I was in Alcoholics Anonymous. And people just didn't know. I guess, I don't know. I was just a basket case. I was terrible. And I had this like image, and people like, oh my God, there she is, the hostile one, kind of thing. And I remember this one guy came up to me one time, and he's like, I'm so sick of you. You come here like 3 times a day, and you just like always pissed off, and you're always angry. And if you don't, I don't care if you stay here or you don't stay here, but why are you doing this? And he said, did you think that AA stood for angry Asian and kind of thing? And I mean, I didn't think it was funny at all. But anyway, so that's how I was. And this person who was in the detox became my temporary sponsor, and she was kind of getting on my nerves. So I had to get rid of her. I think that is so awful. People think I'm going to fire my sponsor. Anyway, so I told her in the parking lot of this club that I used to go, I hated AA so much I walked to 3 meetings a day every day, first year. again, God is doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I told her, hey, I don't think this is working out, so I'm going to get another sponsor. And she said, oh, thank God my prayer has been answered. So I got another sponsor. Her name was Mary Francis, and she's the one who took me through the steps. And I'll never forget the day that I did step 5 with her. I had to tell her all the things I've done, all the things I'd done that I shouldn't be doing, all the things, all the places that I ended up that I shouldn't be at, and all the things I'd done by selling my soul. And what she did is she came around and gave me a hug, and she told me she loved me. And I didn't understand how anybody could love the person that was on that piece of paper, but I believed her. And when I was 7 years sober, she was diagnosed with lung cancer, and she was 6 months. She was given 6 months to live, and I was one who was taking care of her because her kids basically never forgave her for coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and divorcing their father. So she wasn't talking. Her kids weren't talking to her, and this is the time where I had a resentment list actually longer than the first one that I came with. And of course, her kids were on there. My parents were still on there, which amazed me. I was 7 years sober, and my parents were still on there. And I thought I did all the things you guys asked me to do. I did all the action part, and they were still on there. And when I was 6 months sober, my mom, they still live in Korea. They're not doing well, not because of the virus thing. They're just old and a lot of health problems. But my mom decided to come over to America and see how I was doing. And I didn't like that at all. I hated her when I was 6 months over. And she flew all by herself, half around the world. And then she wanted to meet my sponsor. She knew somehow, she didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, but she knew that this sponsor was keeping me sober somehow. That's all she knew. She wanted to meet her. So I take her to that club, and she meets my sponsor, and she walks over to my sponsor and she gives a hug, and then she starts sobbing. My mom starts sobbing. I never seen her sob like that. And I overhear her say, "Thank you for saving my daughter's life." At the moment she said it, this anger just shot through my whole body. I was literally paralyzed. And the only thought I had was that that she was a sorry example of a mother. And that is all I had. With 6 months sobriety, and then resentment lost me. It took me to 7 years sober, still resenting my parents. And I ended up in a hotel room 3 a.m. with that thought one more time. I don't want to be drunk. I don't want to be sober. I don't want to check out. And the only reason that I do believe today that I didn't check out or didn't take a drink is because the sponsor of mine who was dying always wanted to go to the AA meetings. And at times I was resentful at her that she made me take her to these stupid AA meetings. And today I know that as she was dying, she was saving my life. So at the time, around that time, I got to know this woman named Jill, and she was always telling me that I needed to go to this women's retreat, which really aggravated me because I couldn't even stand 1 hour of women's meeting, and she's wanting me to go the whole weekend. And I would tell her things like, I can't even stand 1 hour of a women's meeting. They're always crying, like I'm doing now, I guess. But anyway, so I ended up going to this women's retreat, and by this time, then my sponsor had passed away, and a lot of people were worried. I didn't know that then either. That I didn't know that people actually cared about my sobriety and my well-being. That's how distant I was to people. That's how afraid I was to people. And I go to this women's retreat, and it happened to be Polly and Michael doing the workshop, and I hear Polly talking about somebody else's inventory, and her mom was on it. Mom and dad has a bad time in Alcoholics Anonymous. So she asks the woman, Polly says, well, how did your mother grow up? And then that little thing got to me. It like got to me, it got me in my heart. And then Michael was sharing her story, and she says, before I tell you about my childhood, let me tell you about my mother's. And that got me. And I started to realize what the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was a Big Book, I don't want to call it Nazi, but I could quote, I can't do it now, but I used to be able to when I was 7 years old. At 7 years sober, I knew everything in the Big Book, and I would correct people if they misquoted it. And the part about the pipes that were spiritually saved, like us, that means I get to put myself in their shoes, and I start thinking about how my parents grew up. And I became willing, and then I understood. I understood them before I was understood. I started to love them before I was loved. I started to comfort them before I was comforted. And that all, and it was like a magic. It was like the miracle that people talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous. It was gone. And I was okay. I wasn't up at 3 a.m. hating my parents. And the 7 years of sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous, I was so angry, I was so judgmental, and I was so critical that I couldn't even sponsor people. It became basically totally ineffective and useless in rooms of AA. And if you're useless in rooms of AA, that is a very, very sad situation. And that's who I was. I was so I started to make amends. My sponsor was very big on amends. First of all, she asked me to make financial amends, and I was making $4.75 an hour part-time at that, because nobody will even hire me full-time. And those financial amends I made was very important to my sponsor at first, and I was just doing it because she told me to do it. And all these other stuff that I started to do, and I started to get sponsees, and they stay with me. They don't fire me. They don't say things like with the tears running down their faces, I can't share step 5 with you because I know you're going to judge me. Anyway, so around I was trying to make amends to my sister, the one that came and got me, and she was going to Al-Anon meetings, and this is how she came to save me in New York. And because those people told her what to do. They told her that you send her to the worst detox you could think of. You don't have to send her to fancy rehab. It just costs a lot of money, and you don't need it. And send her to worst detox you could think of, and you need to kick her out when she's 6 days sober because she needs to be self-supporting. She's 29 years old. You're not responsible for that, and blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't even get a job. And I remember she went to one of those, she would go to Al-Anon meetings every Wednesday. And when they told her 60 days up, you need to kick her out, and she couldn't do it. She basically, tears rolling down her face, saying to these people that she has no place to go, she has no money, she'll be on the street if I kick her out, and she couldn't do it. Until one Wednesday, the topic was relapse, and she never heard of that. So she was like, oh my God, what is going to happen if my sister relapses? And they said, my sister is a cello player in the orchestra. And they said, well, first thing's going to happen, your cello is going to end up on a pawn shop. So she kicked my ass out. And I had to get this apartment. And I had nothing in this apartment. I had to drag this mattress from the street and to sleep on it. And of course, my sponsor thought that I was sleeping on the floor because I was Asian. Bless her heart. Anyway, tried to make amends to her. And she was actually one of the first one that was on the list. And the first few times I tried to make amends to her, she was like, she had a list of things I'd done to her since I was 5. And I was telling my sponsor, this is not really working out here. And she's like, why don't you just be the best sister you could be? What is that you could do? So I tried to think of things. I folded her, I did her laundry. I folded for her because I had a kid to her place. She kicked me out. And I would like sharpen her pencils because they use a lot of pencils, musicians with the music and all that stuff. And, I'll clean her apartment. I just did those things. So whether she liked it or not, I did it. And so her birthday is actually my sobriety day. Because I remember I called her from the detox on her birthday. I didn't know it was her birthday. And I cussed her out. And she'd been saving money to buy a cello boat from Europe. And she had to spend that money to get me from New York and put me to detox. And I cussed at her. And I don't know what they did to her. But so that's the day. Is my sobriety date is also her birthday. And today she calls me on her birthday to wish me happy 88th birthday. And that when it happens is because of Alcoholics Anonymous. So in 2009, I went back to see my parents, visit my parents. And one of the last days I was there, my mom is sitting on the floor folding her laundry and stuff. And I was looking at her and she just looked so old and so tired. And I was rubbing her back and I was thinking about her childhood. She was abused and she had a terrible childhood. And I was thinking about childhood and I even thought about her adulthood because I watched my mother who could not shed a single tear when her father died, when her mother died, when her only sibling died. But she stopped for me when I was 6 months sober in front of the Smoky AA club. And I told her, Mom, you look so tired. And she turned around and she took my hand and she said, I'm not proud of a lot of things I've done in my life, but what I regret the most is how I treated you. And the moment she said that, I knew I was forgiven for things I'd done and forgiven for the person I became through alcoholism. And that it was as if the little, the soul that I saw for all those drinks, it was as if a little piece of it came back. And my parents never knew I resented them for all those years because my actions said something else. So I didn't have to re-hurt them in order to make that amends. And I'm so thankful for Alcoholics Anonymous and people who came before me and taught me those things. And but as you had it, God is never done. It talks about how, he will disclose more to us. And that is so true. I didn't even know what that meant when I was first reading it. It's like, what the hell do they mean? But I have one of my sponsors, she's on here, and we have a similar background. Not that because she's half Asian, because I'm sponsoring her because nobody would sponsor her, basically. I'm the idiot who said yes. And she has this little, I tell you what, I mean, even if she was new, she had to like move to Miami from Jacksonville when she was, barely a year sober, and she was complaining about meetings in Miami. They're like, they don't know what they're doing. I guess we all do that. I did it when I moved to Sarasota. They don't know what they're doing. So I said, do something about it. So she decided to have her own conference. I didn't mean that, but she went there. So one of the first one that she did, I went down to see her, and her mom was there. And it was a Saturday night banquet thing. And her mom sees me, and she starts walking over to me with tears running down her face. And she says, thank you for saving my daughter's life. And I got to hear what my sponsor heard when I was 6 months over through my mom. And I saw in her eyes the unconditional love that parent has for their child. I didn't get to see that when I was 6 months over because I was too angry, but I got to see that in her eyes. And without Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have missed all that, And like our friend Bob always says, it doesn't get done by us, it gets done through us. We're not the well, we're the pipe. And I truly believe that. And I'm going to steal this one thing from Carl. Carl always ends his story with about his kids, how much he loves them, and he'll never trade them. And, I don't have kids, so I don't know what that's like. But he also talks about how he would die for them, that he will never trade them for the first drink, but he will for the second. And for me, I don't have kids, so I don't know what that's like. But I could tell you this. I know that today that I consider to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic. To deep down in my soul knows it. So today, I would never sell my soul for the first one, but I would for the second one, just like that. So I just want to thank you guys for saving me a seat. And Alcoholics Anonymous had my soul attached to it. That's it.